You may be wondering, is it ADHD or executive functioning? Hi, I'm Dr. Roseanne, and I'm a mental health trailblazer. And join me as we have real conversations about real solutions to kids' problems. I'd have it no other way. And today we're talking about, is it ADHD or executive functioning? And how we're going to figure that out and what to do about it. So let's dive in. So you've been listening to this series about executive functioning. I'm so glad you are. It's one of the most misunderstood parts of the brain. Yeah, there's a part of the brain that manages executive functioning. It's in the frontal lobes, same place as focus, but guess what? They're different, right? I hope you've gotten that. So what is ADHD? What is executive functioning? Let's start with what's the difference between attention and executive functioning. So attention is the brain's ability to alert, okay? And executive functioning is the brain's ability to plan and prioritize for a future event and outcome, right? And people with great executive functioning skills, man, they see results. They see the end result of everything, right? I'm going to get a house, boom, they start visualizing, right? I'm making dinner. They know that it's a stir fry. It's got chicken in it. It's got water chestnuts and bamboo shoots. Doesn't that sound good? Put a little bok choy in there. They see and think and act with the result in mind. People with poor executive functioning go into a grocery store and they don't know what the heck they're getting. They throw things in the cart. Then they get home and they realize that nothing can actually make a meal. How about that? Right? Is that going ding, ding, ding for you? Well, when we have ADHD, you should go back and listen to, is this ADHD or normal behavior? ADHD is a clinical condition. It's a part of the brain that isn't working the way that it should. It has to do with attentional control, attentional shifting, alerting. And when you struggle and to the level that your attention is really impacting you in relationships, work, school, home, there's got to be a significant impact. And your attention has to be impaired for quite a bit of your day. You can't just have, oh, this is pandemic ADD, or I'm depressed and now I have an attention problem. That ADHD has to have shown up before age 12, okay? But executive functioning is very intertwined, right? Because if we're not paying attention, how are we going to have good working memory, sustain our attention, or even start a task, right? These are foundational skills of executive functioning. So we must understand that they are intertwined, but they are separate. And people with ADHD always have attention problems. Not everybody with attention problems has ADHD, okay? So people with ADHD always have executive functioning problems. Not everybody with executive functioning problems has ADHD. So why are we a misunderstanding? Why are we really causing this difficulty with parents? Well, one, I don't think really psychologists, I don't think medical providers, I don't think school professionals really get it. I know that a lot of school professionals thankfully follow me and they tell me this is the first time they've ever heard this. And why is this important? Because executive functioning is a set of skills. There's foundational skills and there's advanced skills, and we're going to dive into that. And they can be taught. They can be learned, okay? Where ADHD, if the brain isn't alerting, yes, there are many natural and holistic things. If you're following me, there's lots of ways. Exercise has been shown to dramatically improve attention. Diet, of course, my beloved neurofeedback, PMF, supplements. We have a supplement coming out for people with focus problems. I'm so excited about it because there's nothing on the market that I love, so I had to create my own. How about that? So we have to understand these are things that can be taught. And if school professionals are not really understanding what executive functioning is, they're doing what they're doing, which is saying, let's start with a checklist. And that's not the way you build executive functioning skills. But this is really about, how do I know if it's ADHD? How do I know if it's executive functioning, right? So let's look at those characteristics of ADHD, right? So you're going to see problems with impulse control. You're going to see it show up even in small ways, even as a younger child. Certainly needs to show up before age 12. And it looks different in everybody. So you might have a more emotionally dysregulated teenager, and they've always been that way. You might have a teenager who's sweet as pie, but couldn't focus. You might have a 5-year-old who can't keep his hands to himself, and they had to, have behavioral charting. And this could be ADHD, but executive functioning, right? You often see it as a comorbid thing, something that's there with other things. It also can be there on its own. I have a lot of super high IQ kids. My gosh, they're so smart. And they often struggle with executive functioning. And sometimes it's because they are so into certain things that they don't always see the forest through the trees, right? It doesn't have to be. Yes, we have executive function dysfunction. It's not in that DSM because there's no medication for it. That's why it's not there. Just a little FYI. So we want to make sure that, we understand that it can co-occur with other things because we don't want our kids misdiagnosed as ADHD. If they're dyslexic with executive functioning, guess what? They need reading help and they need support with executive functioning. They don't need an ADD pill. Okay. Yes, we can do more things to help their brain alert, but we really got to get to the root causes. If we're not getting to the root causes, you literally are going to be spaghetti on the wall. You're going to be on a roller coaster that does not end. And that is why you're here. We're talking about solutions, and I want you to have solutions. And executive functioning is something that can be taught. Now, when it co-occurs frequently with things like autism, right? There are things we can do to support the autistic brain and behavior, and they can be supported together, right? So somebody who's autistic is rigid, and they can't see beyond with their own idea of the plan and the way they want things, right? It's just part of autism. And when I look at an autistic brain and a QEG, it's the most inflexible brain of any brain that I have. And that means their communications are literally like stuck. I always tell parents when I see an autistic brain, it's like they're stuck on a highway system and there's no other cars and all the exits are taped off. Exactly what an autistic brain looks like on a QEG when I look at the brain's communication. And so there's a rigidity, right? We have to have flexibility, we have to have emotional control, and we have to have response inhibition, which means we're controlling our impulses. And so in autism, those are things that are really hard, right? So there's an overlap between these things. We've already talked about mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, OCD. Of course, your ability to see the end result, complete a task, of course it's going to be harder for you. You are struggling with emotionality. So let's make sure we are starting with what is going on, right? That's why I love to check under the hood with QEGs and brain checks. Let's not guess. But even if you can't get that, remember, put your detective hat on, think about why is this behavior happening? And I hope this podcast really helps you to understand executive functioning. What is the difference between executive function and ADHD? Executive functioning is a set of metacognitive skills that can be learned. ADHD is a clinical condition where the brain is different, and both can be improved with lifestyle, with direct teaching about things, and lots of reinforcement for desired behaviors. We want to shape the behaviors we want. So listen to the series because we're getting down to number one, so important to understand, because without understanding, you are not going to move forward.